That was sweet. I mean, half of it was. The good times, sweet. Bad times, still sweet. Nordo, the master mixer of the Monday Montage, brings us into a week of play, ya say, at FM 100.3, KFAN in the 9 to noon radio presentation, a
9 to noon.
Let's quickly go inside the weeds of 9 to noon with the good times and bad times of the weekend. Of the station's core four, this is the time slot, the real estate. This is the radio show that is 99% devoted to sports and with a local bent to the professional side of things. That's our Samari. That's our role.
I always love that one.
And we pull for them all because the better the members of the core four of the local professional sports teams perform, the happier we are and the happier fans of said teams seem to be. 9 to noon also recognizes listeners have their favorites. So sometimes you come for the Heinze hysteria and have to wait through some pickle at the nickel draft bit. You come to hear about and maybe even opine via the talkbacks about your personal disdain for Jamal Murray basically buying spendy Denver real estate at the free throw line, and hear the final stages of a Monday mock draft the host decided he doesn't even want to do.
I always love that one.
All that can be a struggle for listeners, and that's all good. For me, here's the struggle right here, right now. And there's a struggle right here, right now. While what happened in Dallas Saturday was one of the most impressive playoff wins in the history of the Minnesota Wild, the at times selfish approach and scattered nature of the team trying to win in Denver is what's hitting the heart.
L.
Mental toughness in Dallas, mental fragility in Denver.
L.
You love one and you loathe the other. You see, many in the state of hockey could not care less how far Finchy advances, but we do. And much to the chagrin of the marketing campaign that is the state of hockey, there are people in Minnesota who tolerate hockey conversation laying in wait for the Corey Chavis take on Monroe Freeling's short shuttle time. And that's fine, too. And after all the frustration, at the core, it's folly. Because we have kids to raise, bills to pay, and real-life challenges to fend. But when you care about this time of the year the way many of us do, the analysis of postseason games is elevated. And lots of people like to formulate opinions. And that's awesome. That's fantastic. But the struggle right here, right now, is I am so frustrated with what I witnessed Saturday with the Minnesota Timberwolves. It very low-key has sapped joy from what the hockey team did.
Oh my gosh.
Come on!
Above average at that.
Anybody out there feeling the same? Let's lament together. Talkback sprinkled in today and most of the week. Free iHeartRadio app, you know the drill. It's a mental tug of war, isn't it? Oh, the Wild will be celebrated and the NFL draft dissected. But let me present this side of the two-game Saturday full of big spot moments for many listening now, and the dark side of the mental gymnastics taking place with me and maybe some others. How can one in their right mind root for a team that employs one of the most gifted in the world in Anthony Edwards and spend most of the entire second half hoping he gets pulled out of the game?
Oh my
I said it. I said it.
Average.
I don't run from it. No, I ain't running from it. I mean, I'm like, win without him until he decides the play called is the right thing to do and keeps feeding others until the Nuggets show they can figure out things. Julie is some too, but that's an aside. More on that potentially in a second. Anthony wouldn't pass the ball, and when he did, good things happened. He wouldn't pass the ball, and he kept missing. Players with his talent, productivity, and skill set get the guidelines while others play by the rules. And I'm on board with that earned equity. Emphasis on the last two words, earned equity. I'm also on board with those who possess his talent, productivity, skill set, and earned equity, shooting themselves back into rhythm due to missing time and even playing hurt right now. I'm all right with that. It's age old, but not when it lacks self-awareness. The game was close into the third quarter, then one pass, one Ant miss, one Denver dunk. Miss, make for them, leave your feet, pass, turn it over, 3 for them. Bad stuff, very bad stuff. It just kept happening. And if Denver hadn't missed shots during that span, we would have been down 20-plus points. Now, fairness in Ant Act. Fairness in Anthony Edwards Act. After the game, regarding Jaden McDaniels and the way he played, Edwards responded to a Dane Moore question about passing the ball and stuff like that. And his response was, quote, Ant, quote, the game changer, quote, the bad name. I think Finchie does a great job of trying to call his number, but I got to do it without Finchie calling his number a lot more because he's really bleeping talented. We need him to shoot more, like 18 to 20 shots a night. Stop! Then pass him the freaking ball. Give him the ball and let him shoot. And if it doesn't work, then gun. Now, Anthony giving us some self-awareness for the care about the context crowd. I get that, but I could do without the going rogue part to get Jaden 20 shots. Not on that knee and with some of these decisions that are being made. Now, because this is the age of rage and a time context of the matter or comments seem to conveniently get lost in the equation at times, no, I'm not blaming all of Saturday's loss on Anthony Edwards. What I'm saying is if he thinks the best way to beat Denver is for him to carry the weight of the series on his shoulders, play hero ball with the 4 shots, and to do so while being double teamed and working on a bad knee, the Minnesota Timberwolves are all done in 4 games. And that's a fact.
Oh my gosh. Can you
I'll say it again, just to make sure the contextually inefficient hear it the right way. I don't place all of Saturday's loss on Anthony Edwards. But to whom much is given, much is expected. And if he thinks he's going to carry the weight of the series on his shoulders, play that hero ball, force those shots even when he's double teamed, all while on a bad knee, the Minnesota Timberwolves are all done in 4 games. What he told Dane is encouraging, and we'll see what happens tonight. Now, that shared, there's another part of the struggle, at least for yours truly. While I for sure want them both to advance, the Wolves and the Wild, and truly have no preference, when you lose with what I perceive as selfishness that we have seen before, and everybody can see the shell-shocked looks on faces of those sitting on the bench or in the game, they then become mentally fragile and don't know what to do. And that's going to trigger me. Like Finch, seriously, with Anthony and the passing and not passing when he leaves his feet and throwing it to the other team, like Finch and staff have not worked on this, like they haven't talked about it. He's talked about them talking about it 9 to noon. Like teammates are ever going to say, my man, it ain't working. Pass it and let's get something going. That's not going to happen. So how does one get hold of that? And what do you think about it via the talkback machine? Do we just let Ant play how Anthony wants to play on that bad knee? If there was no bad knee, this would be no conversation because it would just be a bad day at the office. The game was winnable. Denver indeed is better than 2 years ago. And we have a major problem. If the ball is going to become that sticky with 1 or 2 players, and if the punchback is going to look like what we saw Saturday. Wolves intensive talkbacks next segment. We'll see where those go. Free iHeartRadio app. Get about 30 seconds. Do your thing. And I'd like it explained to me why Jaden McDaniels went from unstoppable to unused while in the game. So here's the human nature of basketball. When that happens and you're getting shut out because somebody's gunning, then you start forcing shots. Why? Because you don't know when you're going to get another chance to shoot. It happens all the time, everywhere. I mean, Jaden scored 8 points in 3 minutes in the first quarter. They couldn't find him. He then shot a three-pointer from 27 feet and missed some running bit off 1 foot later in the game. And all the while in the first quarter, he and everything was fluid and there were dunks and the synchronicity was excellent. If Julius Randle is going to get pushed around by the basket or settle for three-point shots time and time again, Davey, we're in a lot of trouble. If Naz Reid is going to give 17 mostly ineffective minutes and hoist just 2 3-pointers, we're in a lot of trouble. All right. Thanks for listening. Letting me get that off my context covenant chest. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's jumpstart the good times portion of the equation with the Northern Fire Weekend Wrap.
Indeed, the Weekend Wrap is presented by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply, northernfirebbq.com. And put this on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. This Saturday, serving starts at 11. It's Customer Appreciation Day at Northern Fire, and that's going to include Yoder, Gosney, Rectech, Alpha, Outlaw, all the sweet brands, and they're cooking up meats, and they're feeding you. Go get fed and go enjoy elite barbecue and check it all out at Northern Fire on Saturday, Customer Appreciation Day. And we were very much appreciating Northern Fire Weekend Wrap style, what was happening down in Dallas.
To the right wing side, Kaprizov has a lane, darted in, and he scores! Kirill Kaprizov ripped it off the backboard from a tough angle.
Yeah, tough angle indeed. I still don't know how he put that thing in there. That made it 2-0. Eventually it was 3-0 and 4-0 and finished up 6-1 as Wild took game one. Now, a lot of offense in that game. We saw a couple from Boldy, including an empty netter, Jules Erikssonek. How about him crash into the front of the net, just put a pass in front of him and let him finish that thing? He did it twice. Hartman got in there. But on the defensive side of things, what about Wally?
Rantanen right circle, goal line pass, his centering feet. Johnson a shot, stopped by Volstead. Rebound trickles around. Volstead got him in his right skate.
That's the voice of Joe O'Donnell. He's going to join us at 9:45. But Jesper Volstead, 27 saves on 28 shots. The kid making his playoff debut. Lights were not too bright for him. Gives up the goal, I think, late second period. Would then make 2 elite saves before the end of the second frame. And then in the third period, there's a melee in front of the net. Finds it with his skate. Beautiful performance by Volstead. But on the opposite end of the spectrum than what we saw in Dallas was a team that was executing on a ton of the talkers that we brought into this series. Hey, what about this bottom 6? How physical can they be? Can they affect things? They were. The Foligno brothers, physical moments from them. And it felt like, I'd say probably shortly after that Kaprizov goal, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, PA, it felt like Dallas became eventually listless and kind of just wanted to get out of this game. Very uninspired hockey from them. In some ways, by the dominating performance of the Wild, maybe forcing that action.
The first question I will pose for Wild Radio Vox, Wild Joe O'Donnell, is, were the Dallas Stars lifeless, and did they need that game for whatever the reason? Because there's a mantra bouncing around there that seems to be acceptable, where all they do is lose the first game. All they do is lose game one of playoff series. Like last year, they lost the first game. They got killed in this series to Colorado, came back and won it in 7 games.
Yeah.
They're acting like game one is a foregone conclusion and game two is promised to them. So were they lifeless, or did we take the life out of them? Only time will tell, Davey.
Indeed. Weekend Wrap brought to you by Northern Fire. It was a third quarter malaise.
The Wolves look a little gassed. Gobert and Randall both hands on their shorts, leaning over. Here's Randall run inside. Took the contact, could not get the finish. Gordon held his own without fouling. Here's Gordon, got away with the travels. He feeds it to Cam Johnson. Back to Gordon. Corner 3 on the way is good. Wolves need a timeout. They're facing their largest deficit of the game.
Yeah, at the half, tied. At the end of the third quarter, down by 12, and sadly now down 0-1 in the series, 116-105, the final. You heard it from PA. Anthony did lead the team in scoring. Anthony Edwards with 22. It was a day of tough shots. I mentioned to you via text, PA, there was a sweet corner three off the extra pass from DeSumo. But then I watched a couple moments in the midst of the second quarter when Denver was coming back and eventually tying it at the half, where DeSumo was just chucking up threes. And then Jaden McDaniels later in the game getting frustrated and shoving Jokic. And Randall, really, when Randall disappears, man, I don't know if he's in the arena. And that's kind of how it looked at times yesterday. There was, you mentioned the early offense from Jaden McDaniels. I liked DiVincenzo, wished he could have gotten more opportunities.
Yeah.
And it's weird to praise this guy. I know well, it's not weird to praise him. He's one of the best defensive players in the history of the game. Rudy Gobert, I thought, save for a couple of spots, was terrific. Had a bad turnover that led to kind of a momentum-changing bucket.
Yeah, who cares?
But he was making some offensive moves defensively. He was a protector of he was fantastic, I thought. Those were two players that I liked out of Saturday's otherwise malaise, as I mentioned in the Game 1 loss.
Yeah, when I say the struggle is real with me right now with those two games, and that human nature gets to win, it dominated me after that Wolves game all the way through 9 in the morning and Led Zeppelin's Good Times, Bad Times to where we are right now at 9:19. Because Rudy Gobert was stupendous.
He was great.
Every step of the way, the offense, the catching, the passing, the whole thing.
Where have those hands been for the last 2 years?
Holy cow.
We're going to need more than Rudy Gobert tonight in Game 2. And looking forward to the Wolves handling business and evening up the series. And the Wild, I heard much conversation about it on the radio. I think this would be the first time the Wild hold a 2-game advantage in a series if they're victorious in Game 2.
Yes, sir.
Weekend wrap, putting a wrap on it, the Twins. They were up 3. They gave up 3 in the 9th to the Reds yesterday, then needed a run in the bottom just to get cooked in the 10th for 3 more, lose 7-4. This baseball team, sadly, has gone from winning 8 of 9 to losing 4 straight. They were swept by the Reds. Now they head to the Mets, and somebody's streak's got to go, PA. The Mets have lost 11 in a row. They lost in the 10th inning yesterday, swept by the Cubs, Dodgers, and A's before that. Somebody's streak's going to end tomorrow at 6:40 out east. Twins at Mets. And then a couple of Gophers-related notes. Gophers gymnastics finishes 4th in the national championship weekend. 4 on the floor, I believe is what they call it. That's the best they've ever finished in program history. So some weekend rap covenant claps. Go to the gymnastics squad.
Well, why wouldn't we? This is your pommel horse leader, 9 to noon.
I haven't touched my toes in a long time. Go for men's hoops as well. Apparently, Nico Medved crushing the portal. Got one of his Colorado State guys back as well. Kyan Evans had spent a year in North Carolina this last year after Medved came to Minnesota. And now Evans is joining him in Dinkytown. So watch the portal, watch the hoops team. Nico might have a team, and that's going to be fun to watch. That is the weekend wrap brought to you by Northern Fire Grilling and Barbecue Supply, northernfirebbq.com. And remember, Customer Appreciation Day. It's Saturday. You're getting fed. You're going to get to see all the brands, all the bits, the best in barbecue at Northern Fire in Minnetonka on Saturday.
Talkbacks. Anything on the Wolves to get it off your chest and not harbor sports-related ill will the rest of the day? Also, who's in more trouble and why off the Saturday losses? The Wolves or the Dallas Stars? Who's in more trouble and why off those Saturday L's? The Wolves or the Dallas Stars? I mean, at least the Timberwolves found some answers to the test. Dallas was smacked around from A to Z and is guided by a coach nobody's heard of and also is 0-5 in the playoffs. And I ain't kidding with either one of those. This question is age-old in the world of sports and should be answered tonight when they play Game 2. Nordo touched on it. Were the Dallas Stars just lifeless and needed that game to get going for some reason, or did we take the life out of them and they have a significant problem due to hearing messages from a coach nobody has heard of and hasn't won a playoff game and already was fired in Dallas one time? There's much on which to chew, and I'm glad all of you are here for it. Wolves Talkbacks take place next segment. That's all courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. Ooh, what's on deck 9 to noon includes former Minnesota Vikings wide receiver Adam Thielen in studio at about 10 o'clock, and we happen to be quite excited for that. Thank you for listening. Here is the ballyhooed return of the cash thing, courtesy of 9 to noon.
The Fan and BigDeck.com want to give you a shot at some bonus bucks with the National Cash Contest. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword deposit. You might win, you might get some bonus bucks and make a deposit with the keyword deposit at KFAN.com.
Fan.
We talked about, being able to ride the waves of adversity that happen in a possession or a game or certainly a series. And I thought we did that and being able to ride out some kind of poor offense, whether it was be lack of shot making or lack of movement.
Thank you.
Gave ourselves a chance, kept guarding, and then got back in, got to within 2. And then, within that period of time, a bunch of, like the plays that we just talked about. So we got to be better there. A lot of composure issues and just kind of, we got to make smarter, more solid plays. We had 2 turnovers right in the middle of one run back, one in the paint, which was a tough pass for Rudy to handle. And Rudy does the wraparound DHO that they poke away. Then we get the away from the play foul. And then it just, wasn't very smart. We got to be more composed.
Chris Finch following the Game 1 loss at Denver. Joe O'Donnell, Radio Vox for the Wild, 15 minutes from now. I want to empty a couple of things from some notes I took during the games, both games, but from a Timberwolves standpoint, because I couldn't find these and I just found them. Not that they're series changing or earth shattering, and I can't exactly remember what point of the game some of them took place, but I think they play. Like, let Bruce Brown shoot whenever he wants. Just leave Bruce Brown open and let him shoot whenever he wants. Bones and Ayo have played better, still lead by 9 early second. All right, so I'm looking for that speed merchant thing with Bones and Ayo. And the perceived advantage really didn't bowl me over at any time in Game 1. Julius can be so disinterested sometimes. It's 47-47, 4.5 minutes to go in the first half. That Julius Randle common thread needs to stop tonight. Ball got sticky. Anthony stopped passing for patches. One of your tweets, Nordo, I thought was really, really telling. When you blamed the loss on the altitude.
I always love that one.
You can't dispute the altitude of the Mile High City.
Well, you heard it in that highlight here. Let me find it.
The Wolves look a little gassed. Gobert and Randall both hands on their shorts.
Yeah, for sure.
Mile high, man.
By the way, with Wolves Talkbacks, if you think I'm being too hard on Anthony Edwards, have at it. I'm a to whom much is given, much is expected guy. I also am a earned guidelines with others having rules guy. And I'm also I also am quite aware of how good Anthony Edwards can be when he's healthy. And he's not healthy. And he's playing on a bad knee. And I thought it was very apparent. Talkbacks.
Talkback Machine, free iHeartRadio app.
PA, it's crazy to me that anyone would think that the outcome of Game 1 for the Timberwolves would have been any different. If you watched this team all year long, all they did was selfish basketball. They'd figure it out for 3-4 games here, and then they'd go right back to it. And I'm a little worried about Finch. Love the guy, think he's a great coach, but I think he's getting too stubborn and won't change his ways.
That is a stupendous Minnesota Timberwolves related talkback. The hindsight is 2020 bit in the beginning. Probably could have done without that. Other than that plays into the struggle that I described 20 minutes ago that I'm having right now.
Yeah.
Because Talkback Tommy's right. It's when things would go pear-shaped in a fair amount of situations, selfishness was the culprit. Ball gets sticky, ball gets sticky, ball gets sticky. Yeah, and here's the struggle. Because when you advance to the postseason for a 5th consecutive year, and you get all your dogs back. Now, granted, your best dog is 85-ish%, whatever. that there are things that you just expect from a mental toughness standpoint, a self-awareness standpoint, and the fact that you can beat these guys because you have, that some things would change. But, regarding Finch, it's with Anthony. I mean, I know he has talked to him repeatedly over the years. Those guys love each other. It's a surrogate dad, surrogate son, surrogate uncle, surrogate nephew thing. Those guys love each other. So I know Finchie's been like, Ant, you got to pass, my man. I mean, you can see Chris on the sideline a couple of times when there'd be one pass, 18 seconds to go on the shot clock. Ant would throw up a hopeless shot, and then he would just his arms would go outstretched like, what happened? Like, why? And, when it comes to now I'm not going to say Mike Conley is not somebody who can or will or has or has not done this. Conley's the kind of guy that would be like, dog, we got to do it this way a little bit because this just ain't working. Other than that, ain't nobody saying anything. The shell-shock nature on the countenances of the players, everybody saw it on television if you were watching. But from a stubborn nature standpoint, I'm not going to, personally speaking, which doesn't make me right, I'm not going to give it 10 of 10 credence. But it's closer to 10 than it is 5. But so then you get into what are the alternatives? What are the alternatives? Okay, well, we know who plays off the bench. Baron J playing? No, I'm not. I'm just not into that at this stage of the young man's equation. You got some others who potentially can A, play, or B, play more. But before thinking about the elevation of them, because you have players playing on whom you can count. Bones Highland was out to lunch. It was ridiculous. He gets time tonight, but if it doesn't work, Jalen Clark gets his minutes. That's how I do it. Jalen Clark gets his minutes if Bones plays like he played in game 1. And why do I focus in on Bones? Because all this is new to him. Guess who it's not new to? Julius Randle. Seriously, man. Seriously. Stop getting pushed around under the basket. You're the bully. The bully's not supposed to get bullied. He got pushed around under the basket so frequently that Joker, Aaron Gordon, et al. It's almost like they schemed plays to put him there so they could push him and get putbacks. So, if Julius shows up the way he did Saturday, then Terrence Shannon Jr. gets minutes.
Talkbacks.
It is a mental tug of war right now between the Wild and the Wolves. The Wild seem like they're a team that's ascending, where their best is yet to come. This Wolves team seems like it's descending or treading water. And the main reason is they don't have a legitimate number 2 option. Cat was a legitimate number 2 option. Now, you can argue that trade was still a good trade, but who's going to step in
but they
when it's not 100%? Julius Randle sure didn't.
Well, but he has, okay? And it's good times, bad times in 2 seasons with him. It's the Zeppelin song in 2 seasons with him. There are good times. But when he's settling for 3-point shots and the bully's getting bullied, those are the bad times. I'm not going to call McDaniels a legitimate 2 for every team in the NBA, but he's a heck of a third option. And we all watched the same thing or listened to the same thing wherever we were able to find it. They could not find him. It was a legitimate problem. Then Anthony started gunning. McDaniels got frustrated, started hoisting shots that he shouldn't shoot, and the whole thing went pear-shaped. But, okay, so, hey, Jaden, don't do that. That's the easy way out, right? Well, if anybody's played basketball with somebody who's really good and they ball hog, when you don't know when you're going to get your next shot, well, then you do things out of body trying to just get a single shot. And that happened with him, and it happened with others. So there's the Timberwolves' lack of a true point guard really reared its head in game 1. And I know they're playing a team that doesn't really have a true point guard, and I'm not counting Bruce Brown as a 35-minute or more guy. But the Timberwolves lacked a legitimate floor general in a game like that, against a team that is vulnerable defensively. And, it looked like we were going to score about 125. I mean, we were all out to get to 100 the way they were playing in the second half. Hey.
Hey, PA, this is Dakota from New Ulm. I think a big talker that we haven't really heard or discussed is the minutes Naz Reid's getting. He just hasn't looked good.
Yeah.
He is a liability on both ends. He's got no bag unless he's making threes or able to get to the rim, and he can't against Jonas and Joker. So I think we need to run with Bones and Io a lot more.
I ain't rolling with Bones if he plays the way he played Saturday. I'm not. I mean, he was out to lunch.
I wonder how bad that shoulder is for Nas.
Amen. I don't, I'm not an elite Greg Farnham mind. I don't call people I can call and ask about injuries. I just don't do that. I'm with Nordo. I'm just wondering, like he didn't look like he was 100%. The fouls some of those fouls were born of just getting beat.
Yeah.
And you get somebody around you, and a lot of people are loud about Jamal Murray and how many times he went to the line. And hey, not every foul call against Jamal Murray was the right call. But to get inside the weeds of basketball with officials and players is, and this is where Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a mastermind, along with others in the NBA, is when you are the aggressive team, when you're the one showing the refs, we're going to take it to them, and we're going to push the envelope, and we're going to make you make quick-fire decisions. When you repeatedly do that the way Murray did it, you're going to get the benefit of the calls. It's not fixing a game. It's giving somebody the benefit of the calls because he's trying to get to the basket and put you in a compromising position. So it's Finch after the game. He said something about how many times Murray got to the line. Social media was ridiculous Saturday night about a couple of things. But Murray earned the right to put those refs in compromising positions. Why? Because we were flat-footed and he wasn't.
Yeah.
So that's the answer. Don't be flat-footed. Don't let him get around you. Don't get beat. And then you won't have to deal with how a very, very good player, by the way, and better than 2 years ago, you won't have to deal with somebody putting you in that spot.
Yeah, I mean, the refs had nothing to do with the result. From my standpoint, on Saturday in Denver.
If anything, we were getting a lot of the calls early.
We were early. And how about, the clomp ability, though, in the first quarter? Like, I thought the game was going to be just completely on tilt, where you get the flagrant bit. Now we have two basket reviews or scoring reviews in the first quarter. I thought it was going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
But in the end, Jamal Murray.
Well, the first flagrant was ridiculous. The second one was mental fragility.
We went through this last year in the conference title series. We can either complain about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the fouling and the free throw merchant, and we saw 16 of 16 from Murray yesterday.
Yeah,
Saturday, or we can adjust to it. At some point, what adjustments can we make in terms of how we don't put ourselves in spots where Gilgeous-Alexander, or in this case, Jamal Murray, are at the line?
In my opinion, there's not an adjustment you can make if they're not going to play the way they're supposed to play. If you're going to play flat-footed, and if your recognition's going to be a tick late, Murray's going to put you in a position to get himself to the line. And that plays into the mentally fragile nature that, like I think the most recent talkback we heard. It's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's just the ways and means become rearranged. It's when we get punched at certain points of games against certain teams, it's over. It's just over.
One more.
What's up, PA and Nordo? I still got the Wolves in 6.
There we go.
I don't think that this
crap
from Murray is going to last in the playoffs. I think the refs are going to start swallowing their whistles.
I hope.
As far as your question, PA, if the Wild are going to score 2 field goals every game, I think Dallas is the one in massive trouble. I want to hear your thoughts. Have a great day, boys. Wolves in 6. Let's go.
Let's go, brother. Nice how. Nobody's heard of the Stars coach. He's 0-5 in the postseason. And I think they're in more trouble than the Timberwolves are, not just because of the way the Wild played Saturday, but because the Stars management and the owners already fired this guy one time. and but they're just going to pawn it off. It was unbelievable hearing Mikko Rantanen wasn't even saying we. He was like they. They always lose game one. They always lose game one. All right, well, I guess game two's promised. We'll find out tonight on KFAN. And on the call will be Joe O'Donnell, who joins us.
In Dallas, a stunner in game one. The Minnesota Wild rout the Stars, a 6-1 final at American Airlines Center. And they have a 1-0 series lead as best of 7.
Joe O'Donnell on the call, likewise for tonight. And Joe O joins us from the Big D. Joe, thanks for the assistance with 9 to noon. Game one, what was Dallas lifeless or the Wild so good they took any life they thought they had from them?
Well, thanks for having me on, PA. Always appreciate it, buddy. I think it's a combo, to be honest, and I'm not trying to stay on the fence here, but the Wild played such a complete hockey game that they kind of smothered Dallas at times. The Stars got a little life when they made it 4-1, but I just feel like the Wild played such a complete 60 minutes, such an impressive performance. Dallas didn't appear like they were ready for that intensity, that level of energy that the Wild had. Could have been Minnesota's resting star players. Guys felt good. Just seemed Dallas a little slow out of the gate. So I'd expect a little bit of a different situation tonight, but if the Wild bring that game again, I like their chances.
Now, the Dallas Stars, and this appears to be en vogue down Big D way, just like, hey, this is what we do. We lose game one, and guess what else we do? We win game two. I mean, it's almost like it's promised to them the way they talk about it, but they got killed by Colorado game one last year in round one and then beat them in 7. Yeah. So to your trained eye, is this Dallas team as good as that one last year?
I think they're a little bit of a different team. I think they, in talking with some of their local scribes, like they're a deeper team. They trust some of their younger depth forwards, maybe more for ice time than they did a year ago. Their power play is, probably better than it was last year, right? Numbers say that as well. It's a franchise record for them. Actually, both teams set a franchise record in the regular season for power play efficiency. So there's going to be a number of factors that decide this series. I don't think by any means it's even close to over. The thing that I like is that, look, the Wild have been here before. The Stars have been here before. You mentioned they trail series early the last few years. They find a way. But the Wild feel like they have, or at least they're saying all the right things about having learned from the past. So to me, it all comes down to this. If Minnesota can come out and, to steal John Hines' term, ice the game that gives them the best chance to win, a la the way they played in game one, in my opinion, this is going to be a really hard series for the Stars to overcome any type of a deficit, because if Minnesota gets to that game, if they play that game that they played in game one 3-4 more times in this series as it goes, 6-7 games, whatever it takes, I just don't think they'll be beaten. I really don't. They played that well in game one. It's going to be tough to do it again. But if they can put that same performance out there, I don't care what Dallas' track record has said, they'll be a really hard team to beat.
Heinze is playing so fast right now.
Fox.
You know more about it than me, Joe. But I mean, the Volstat decision, all right, to most it may be, well, yeah, but that was an easy decision. Personally speaking, I don't think it was that easy when you're a head coach, but he made the right call. Secondly, the players he rested near the end of the season, much to the dismay or chagrin of some of them from what I've read, and you would know more, well, they were spry. And then thirdly, and here's the question, what did Heinze and staff craft to basically eliminate the Johnston from the slot trick? I mean, it was a 0.
Yeah. That's going to be a key, right? The penalty kill, we know, has been much maligned for Minnesota in the playoffs the last couple of years. It's cost them series, especially 2023 against Dallas when they gave up 9 goals in 6 games to the Stars' power play. They got one, did Dallas in game one, but it was off Robertson, them kind of improvising from what they like to do, to your point. So the Wild did a good job of those reads, making sure Wyatt Johnson wasn't just wide open for those one-timers where he had 27 power play goals this year. and I'm sure the lion's share of them from that, that bumper spot, as you said. So it'll be an adjustment now, right? Dallas, I'm sure, will say, okay, if they're going to take this away, let's work this goal line play. Let's try this, bomb it from the point. So we'll see how the Wild then respond. But I just look, this is a very well-coached team, the Minnesota Wild. We've known that now for a couple of years. And I thought last year in the playoff series against Vegas, they caught the Golden Knights off guard early in that series with how they forechecked and pinched their defensemen down the wall maybe more aggressively than they did in the regular season a year ago against Vegas. So I'm sure the Wild had some wrinkles for Game 1. I'm sure they'll have some wrinkles for Game 2. This is going to be a chess match. I expect a hell of a game tonight.
Joel Eriksson Ek, terrific. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't it Ryan Suter a couple of years ago who cheap shotted him and busted up his ribs, thus hurting our chances to win the series?
I know Suter took a shot at somebody. Top of my head, I would have said it was Kaprizov, but I just, look, Eriksson Ek is invaluable to this team. When the Wild didn't have him against Dallas a few years ago, it was a crushing blow to their chances. Let's just call it what it was. He missed games 1 and 2. He came back at home. That place was rocking in St. Paul. He starts the game. The crowd's going crazy. He's back 3 weeks after a broken leg. Of course, we didn't know the injury at the time, fractured leg, whatever the term would be. And then he plays 19 seconds, first shift, refractures it. You can't make that stuff up. And that was just, not only you have to play the rest of Game 3 without him, then, he's lost for the series. So I think he showed Dallas what he means to this team if they didn't already know that in Game 1. Boy, was he just tenacious. The face-off circle, he was dominant. He was 12 out of 21, so 57% in the circle, 2 goals on 5 shots, played almost 20 minutes, and he's in your face. If the Wild gets Joel Eriksson Ek like that, healthy the rest of this series, again, it's going to be a real problem for Dallas.
With their best blue liner, Miro Heiskanen, probably playing hurt, is their blue line mediocre to bad?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, PA, but your point is well taken. Heiskanen is probably going to get better as the series goes on. That's what the Stars are banking on anyway, right? Because he was hurt in the Wild Stars regular season finale, April the 9th, didn't play again until Game 1. He played his normal 23, 24 minutes, had 4 shots, had an assist. So, he's that good, where 85% of Miro Heiskanen is better than most defensemen on the planet. However, their 5-6 pairing of Tyler Myers and Leon Bichel. Niels Lundqvist is very unproven in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Thomas Harley's a stud. Esa Lindell's a stud. So I'd say their top 3 are maybe as good as anybody in the league, but their bottom 3 to me aren't.
Right.
And I think it's something the Wild are going to focus on. Hence the reason the forecheck for Minnesota in the series is so crucial. It played a huge role in Game 1. Dallas looked uneasy with the puck. Talking with Ryan Carter yesterday, he thought that the Wild's second forechecker was right on the spot. First guy's in physical, second guy's right there where he's supposed to be. Dallas wants to flip pucks. They want him to get in the foot races. They want to, transition quickly, and the Wild just made them too uncomfortable to do that in Game 1.
All right, couple of quickies to close here. We want to make sure you are fresh of voice this evening. This is Joe O'Donnell, the radio play-by-play voice for the Minnesota Wild, calls games with Tom Reed, and they were firing bullets this week and sounded really, really good. So you touched on it a little bit earlier, but elaborate if you can, Joe. So, Dallas. What do you think the Stars will do tonight to attempt to even the ledger?
All right, so I might be reading between the lines here a little bit, but yesterday Dallas sent out a little media update just prior to when they were going to take the ice for practice. It said the Stars practice is now optional. I don't think Dallas felt as good in Game 1 as the Wild did, and that was evidenced on the ice. Dallas played their guys all the way until Wednesday night's finale in Buffalo.
Yeah.
In part because they had some guys coming back from injury the last few games of the regular season. I think they wanted some chemistry. Some all right, we need to get guys more minutes. But that meant that everybody played. They didn't rest anybody that I'm aware of Wednesday in Buffalo. All of a sudden, Saturday, Game 1 hits, and the Wild are shot out of a cannon, and the Stars looked a little sluggish. So I think yesterday, and again, it's just my estimation, their coaching staff, their training staff said, man, let's just make this thing optional. A little bit more rest for our guys can't hurt. We know there's 2 days between games 3 and 4. So any advantage the Stars can get to get a little bit more gas in the tank, I think they're going to try and use, because they were just a slower team in Game 1. I do think Dallas is going to come out. Obviously, nobody wants to lose the first game at home. I expect there a little bit of a storm to have to be weathered by the Wild. But if Volstead is strong early and Minnesota settles into the game they played in Game 1, again, they're just going to make it really difficult in the Stars. I'm not saying the Wild will win, but if they play the way they played in Game 1, the rest of this series, as much as they can, even if it's 3 or 4 games of this series the rest of the way, they're going to just make it really hard on Dallas.
So there's a dear friend of mine who has all of your albums. He listens to all your games. He's a full-time package handler for UPS out Lakeville, Apple Valley Way. His name's Lon Anderson. He might be listening now. And he made this.
What up, Lon?
He made this point to me over the weekend, so I'm going to credit him for it because I think it's right, specifically off the way you just laid that out about Dallas playing their guys. That final game against Dallas, where the Wild led 3-1, then here comes the tornado and we lose. Well, there's actually serendipity to that. The positive that transpired out of the negative is Hines was able to rest his guys, and then you play Gus and Wally in certain situations, and you kind of settle in on your goaltending situation. So that final game loss, the final time they played Dallas for the Wild, well, that actually was kind of a victory for Heinze with being able to rest guys.
It's a great point, and I think Quinn Hughes kind of said that on the post-game presser after Game 1. Like, you know, he wanted to play those last few games. He couldn't. We're still a little vague as to why, but the Wild saying he was sick, and he didn't really elaborate on it much. We just know that for a few days he was off the ice. Actually, a week he was off the ice and wasn't around the team much. But he looked great, I thought, and if you get that type of Quinn Hughes the rest of the series, again, it's going to be a big-time issue for Dallas. So a bit of a blessing in disguise that the Wild, knew they didn't have home ice, didn't have to grind to the finish. I like their approach. Guys got rest from games, but that didn't mean they were just, had their feet up by the pool. Like, they were working with skills, and skating coach Andy Ness had Treya Rink kind of behind the scenes. They were getting some conditioning in, some work in the weight room, and they just look like a team that, again, when we saw the Wild had those 4 days at the end of March into April, 2 days off, 2 hard practice days, boom, they came out 1-4 straight. They came out in Game 1 looking like the fresher team, the more energized team, the more prepared team. Again, I'm not saying it's going to hold serve the rest of the way, but great start to the series, jump all over the Stars. And tonight the Wild will try and pull off history, Paul Allen, because they have never had a 2-0 series lead in franchise history in a best-of-7. So this has always been a snafu for this organization going back 25 years. We'll see if it changes tonight.
Okay, via your Twitter feed and the X machine, at Wild Joe Radio, what time does the morning skate minute drop today?
The Stars are on the ice at 10:30. The Wild are on the ice at noon. So I'm hoping like 1 o'clock or so. I'll get to your morning skate minute, PA.
Thank you, brother. Call a good one. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, pal.
That's Joe O'Donnell, beloved Budsy, Wild Joe O'Donnell.
Fox.
He'll be on the radio tonight shortly after 8:30, calling hopefully a second consecutive Wild postseason victory. When 9 to noon continues, we segue from the forechecking and front court of it all to football with recently retired Adam Thielen, who's nice enough to join us in studio. Down memory lane we go with AT19 next.